Pretty much every e-commerce brand wants to make more profit per customer. So that is what we're going to cover today. So let's go ahead and get into this. I've got a lot of fun stuff here to talk about. So let's go ahead and get started. So how to make more profit per customer. All right. So number one, raise your prices. It's literally that simple. If you have not tested raising your prices, and you've just been stuck on the same price. And this is something I'm guilty of also, with a brand that I run ads for. We didn't really raise our prices for a while, and we were actually not charging enough for our product, given what we had in it, and we were struggling to actually make money. And the way we fixed this, very simple. Now, we did a lot of stuff before we really, had raised our prices so that we could do this effectively. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that went into this for this specific brand. But one of the big key problems we had was that we were not charging enough and we were paying too much for what we were getting. And that is a recipe for disaster. So with all that being said, if you have not tested raising your prices, ask yourself why that is. And then you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't think somebody will pay more than this for this product. And then ask yourself why that is. What is the belief that you have that makes you think that somebody will not pay more than what you were charging for the product? Is there a quality issue with the product? Is this just an assumption that you have a preconceived, notion that people won't pay more for the product? What is actually making you think that people will not pay more than what you were charging for the product? Because the simplest way to make more money is essentially just to raise your prices. And if you can test this, you can do it gradually. You can wait for a new product release, for example. Maybe you have version 1.0 or whatever, the original version of your product, and then you're going to come out with a 2.0 version where you're going to make some tweaks, but it's going to be essentially the same design. Maybe you switch manufacturers, something along the lines of that, improve the packaging. Then you raise your prices, even if it's maybe still about the same amount that you have in the product. So there's different ways to go about it, but you definitely want to test raising your prices, because you got to think about it. If you sell 1,000 units a month of whatever it is that you're selling, and you raise your prices $2 and you don't see any change in conversions, you see the same conversion rate, which is very realistic, that's something that could very well happen, you may potentially make $2,000 extra dollars every month in profit just from doing that alone. Now, let's say you raise your prices $5. You may make $5,000 extra dollars in profit every single month. If you're selling 1,000 units, just for the sake of math, that's $5,000 extra dollars in profit every month for something that took you maybe a few seconds to do. Now, of course, there's different ways you can go about doing this. You could go gradually. This is one way to do it, where, if you're having the same product, you're not releasing a new version or anything. What you might could do is you could raise the prices $1, maybe $2. Wait a few weeks, wait a month or so. If you don't see any drop off, then do it again, another $1 or $2, wait longer. And then if you start to see, a noticeable drop off, then, you might have raised, the prices a little bit too much. So there's different ways to go about it, but raising your prices is going to be one of the easiest ways to make more profit. So number two, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, you'll want to improve your product. If you want to charge more for your product, you want to make a better product ideally. Now, of course, like I've said, you can charge more for the same product and make more money. Very simple, and it can work more often than you would expect. So definitely at least test it. If it doesn't work, just change the prices back. Nothing doesn't hurt anything essentially to do that. But the second way to go about doing this, and this doesn't really just apply to charging more. Even if you charge the same thing for the product, but you improve the product, you're probably going to make more money. Customers are probably going to have better things to say about the product to other people. They're going to tell more people, about your brand, because the product is better. So if you actually make your product better, you have customers and you're listening to them. Believe it or not, your customers will tell you what it is that they want to see. If you listen to your customers, you're probably going to make more money. You don't listen to your customers and you say, oh, well, screw them, or whatever. You're probably not going to make very much money, and you're probably going to go out of business if you do that. So secondly, the second thing I will say to do is improve your product. If that means switching to a new manufacturer, if that means changing the design, because you're getting a bunch of complaints about a specific thing and they want you to fix a specific thing, like maybe your lids are leaking, maybe change the design of your lid, pay to have that lid design fixed, make a modification to the mold, for instance, if it's an injection molded product, whatever it is that you have to do. And yes, it might cost money in some cases, but if you want to be in business and you want to stay in business and not just make some money and then go out of business and go broke, you need to actually listen to your customers and actually take action based on what they tell you. Don't just ignore what it is that they're telling you. Work hard to get whatever it is fixed. And if there's an issue, get it fixed as fast as possible, or it's going to cost you a lot more money than if you didn't, in my opinion. So that is that. Number 3. So this one kind of goes hand in hand with number 2. Create a complementary product. So if you sell water bottles, for example, maybe sell replacement filters, if that's something that your customers are asking for, especially, and then you can even do like a subscription option for those. There's all kinds of, stuff you could sell, most likely, depending on what you're selling. It could be, something complementary that goes really well with your product. And then maybe you make an offer where either that is an add-on, on that landing page, or you can have a bundle offer, for instance, that you promote to try to, increase the AOV that has that already included in it. So there's different things you can test there, but I would just simply start with, making an add-on product, something that's easy for you to make or whatever it may be. Ideally, if you have more resources, of course, you could invest in maybe making a custom product or whatever it is, but, have a, add-on product if your customers are requesting for something, especially, if they're saying, hey, we want these filters or whatever, and you're not selling them. Why aren't you selling them? Why would you not sell replacement filters, for instance, if you're selling filtered water bottles? That just wouldn't make sense, because at that point, you're just leaving money on the table, and it's making it harder for your customers because they're not going to want to buy a new, water bottle every time, for example. This is just an example, obviously. But, it applies to pretty much any niche. If you sell protein powder, why aren't you selling, creatine or whatever it is that your customers keep asking for? So it could apply to any niche, essentially. So number 4 is creating a new product that your customers want. So this kind of ties into number 3, but this is a little bit different. Okay. So what I'm talking about in number 3 is creating a complementary product, something like adding replacement filters. Now, this is a little bit different because this would be actually creating a entirely new product. Maybe you have some kind of, shaker cup invention, some kind of unique shaker cup that's going viral or whatever it is. And maybe people are requesting that you make a miniature version that's pocket sized. Okay. So why don't you do that? Why don't you look into that and see what it would cost realistically to do that? And if it would make sense, ask your customers, most importantly. I've heard other guys in the marketing space also talk about this recently, but do not just come out and, invest a ton of money on some new product because you feel like it might be successful if you don't have data to show that. You can do that if you want, of course, but it wouldn't be very smart financially. So you want to, if you're releasing a product, and you're going to come out with a new product and you already have a successful brand, or a brand that's, generating consistent sales on a regular basis, ask your customers what they want to see. You can do this in a number of different ways, make a Google form, or whatever it is, do a survey and say, enter this survey, send it out to your people on your email list, or whatever. Put a link to it somewhere, in your social medias, and ask people, say, hey, enter this survey to give us feedback for a chance to win a $50 digital gift card to my store, or whatever it is. And what that'll do is, if you were to say it like that, you will get people who have a genuine interest in your brand, in helping your brand succeed. Because if they want to do it for a chance to win a gift card, then in that case, they might be, interested in your brand already. They're probably not going to take the time to fill out that survey if they don't have some interest in your brand. Okay. So you'll get people who are actually interested in your brand, ask them questions and stuff and get their feedback on what they want, record the results. And then, of course, if you do a giveaway of some sort, you can send it out, that way. I like the gift card method because This is going to attract people who have interest in your brand, like I'm saying, and you don't actually have to send a product out. Okay, so it's easy to give away. You email them a code, that's all you do. And a lot of times when people get a gift card, they may not even use all of that gift card. So really, it's a very cost effective way to do a giveaway, because even if they do use the gift card, let's say they are not a previous customer. So maybe even in the survey, you could ask, if they were a previous customer, if you wanted, but maybe the person you give the gift card to isn't a previous customer. So they get a chance, because obviously they are interested in your brand. They get a chance to try your product out, essentially for free if they win this giveaway. And they may come back and buy from you again. So it can be a very cost-effective way to do a giveaway if you're doing a gift card, like a digital gift card giveaway, and it can work really well. I did this for another brand, not a massive brand by any means. We got about 50 or so responses on this survey, and we don't have a huge email list by any means. So it can work for sure. Even if you don't have a massive email list. So what's another way that you can make more profit per customer? Reduce your cost of goods. So very simple. You could raise your prices. You could raise your prices with a new product release, or you can sell the same product and you could just simply reduce your cost of goods. Shave off $1 a unit by shipping in larger quantities, for instance. Or doing, if you normally do air shipping, doing sea shipping and ordering with enough time in advance to where you can ship by sea, for instance, or whatever it is, right? So there's different ways to go about lowering your cost of goods. This one can be a little bit challenging, to be honest with you. It can be a lot of work. In some cases, it can be a little bit challenging, especially if you're already dialed in. If you aren't, a very efficient business already, it might be a little easier. But it can be a lot of work when you're talking about lowering your cost of goods. So this could involve negotiating with your manufacturer. Could be very simple. If you negotiate with them, work out a better deal. Maybe you commit to a certain number of units per year. If you're already selling X number of units per year, and you say, hey, how many units would I have to commit to be able to get my price down, 50 cents or $1 a unit or whatever it is, $2 a unit. Ask them how many units they would have to commit to be able to, get their price down if that's something they offer, for example. So there's different ways you can negotiate with the manufacturer. Sometimes you may even be able to get what's called net terms if you don't have net terms already. Now, this isn't really going to affect your cost of goods, but this can affect cash flow. So, for example, with the main parts that we get for the business, business I do some marketing stuff with, we actually have net 30 terms. So what that means is after they ship that order, we don't have to pay for that for another 30 days, essentially. So that invoice isn't even due for another 30 days, essentially, after they ship the order. So some manufacturers may even do net 60, where it's 60 days after. But the net 30 terms can definitely help with your cash flow, especially if you're placing bigger orders. Buying in larger quantities. This can be another way to reduce your cost of goods. Depending on what you're selling, there may be setup fees involved with the manufacturing. So you may have setup fees, and if you buy in larger quantities, you're going to have lower setup fees, most likely, because it's going to be spread out over a larger number of units. So you could just simply buy larger quantities, or for example, just change the way you're shipping. Use a more efficient shipping option. So instead of shipping by, UPS ground or whatever it is, just the standard ground shipping if they're in the US, look and see how much you could save to use a truck service, like truck shipping. So there's different truck shipping options out there, and oftentimes, you can have it shipped and have it delivered in, roughly the same time even with some of these truck shipping services, but it may save you money. In fact, if it's, larger shipments, it may save you a lot of money. So this is how I would go about, reducing your cost of goods. And if your product has multiple parts, what I would do is I would look at every single part, that your product has. So if you have a magnet, look at that magnet and say, okay, this magnet costs $1.50. Have we actually tried to source this same exact magnet from somewhere else? Because at the end of the day, if it's a magnet, That's all it is. And you were able to save 50 cents on that magnet through negotiating with your manufacturer or finding a new one, which this is actually something we did because we were paying a lot of money for these magnets. And I had a theory that we were overpaying for the magnets. So what I did was I went and I found another manufacturer for these magnets, and they were significantly cheaper. So we saved a lot of money just to switch manufacturers for these magnets, and it's literally the same exact thing, except now these magnets actually come with adhesive backing, so it's basically an improvement. But it is literally basically the same magnets, but we're paying less for them. The exact same thing, but we pay significantly less for it. So all that's done, for us, for instance, is save us money, which is something you want to do. If you're trying to run a business, so you want to try to make smart financial decisions. But there's many different ways you can look at on reducing your cost of goods. Another thing I would look at is any costs that go into assembly. How can you, if it takes you 5-10 minutes or something to fully assemble one unit to be able to sell it, because maybe you have a complex product that has several different parts or whatever, and you have to test the parts and assemble the parts. How can you cut that down to 5 minutes? Or how can you cut it from 5 minutes down to 2 or 3? Because if you do that and you're paying people to do this assembly process, that's going to cost you money, whether you realize it or not. So that can also save you time, and in turn save you money if you're paying people money, or save your time, which in turn would also essentially save you money. So number 6 is retarget them. And I'm not necessarily saying set up a retargeting campaign, although you could do that. There's different ways to retarget people, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about is through email marketing, text marketing, even for instance, posting on social media. That could be another way to quote unquote retarget people who are followed to you. So even by having a social media presence and talking about new products and new giveaways, you'd be surprised at how many people they don't necessarily promote their products on social media. They may have these large social media followings, but they'll release a new product and you won't even know that they released a new product, for example. So don't be afraid. And of course, there's different strategies and different ways to go about social media marketing. But generally speaking, it's not going to hurt you to talk about your product. If you have a brand page, for instance, where you have posts about different products and stuff, it's not going to hurt you to actually talk about your product. And some people are afraid they're going to annoy people, with posting about it. And there's ways to post, and remind people, about your product without it seeming annoying. So you'll just have to think about it on how to best go about it. But there's definitely ways you can do it and, not seem like you're annoying your customers. Most people, you would be surprised, it's how much it could benefit you just to be posting consistently, where you're reminding people, in those posts, for instance, about your product, or you have a call to action in those posts. It could make a huge difference, in terms of, getting customers to come back and buy again, if you're reminding them consistently. And you can do that through email marketing too, or text marketing. Send out an email if you release a new product and let people know, for example. Send out a text, do whatever you got to do. And you could also, another way to retarget people, quote unquote, is, let's say you do a new product release. So maybe you start a new advertising campaign on Facebook. It's called Meta now, obviously. But maybe you start a new advertising campaign on Facebook for this new color option that you have now available. And you make some ads for that new color option. Even if you're using what's called broad targeting, which is, in my opinion, basically what works the best, with, a lot of social media really, but Facebook especially. Even if you're using broad targeting, you have a pixel connected, it's, connected to your pages and stuff. They're going to retarget people who've interacted with your page or who've visited your website. So they're going to retarget people, with that post essentially, or with that ad that you've made, or the ad campaign that you have. So they may retarget people who've already visited your website if they feel like they may buy, if you're doing a conversion campaign. So you can create new campaigns for new different products, test that as well. Or, number 7, Now, instead of just improving the product itself, maybe improve the delivery. So this type of stuff, you would be surprised. This can make a difference also, just in terms of the first impression that a customer gets. So if you have a crappy looking box, for example, you could take the same product. On one hand, have this, very basic, unprofessional, crappy looking box, right? And then on the other hand, have a professionally designed package, have it presented super nicely, boxed up super neat, and everything. Have it come in this nice bag and all. And it could be the same exact product. I would just about guarantee you, there's a lot of research and stuff behind this. Y'all can dive into it if you want. I would just about guarantee that, almost every time the customers are going to be happier with the brand that actually takes the time to make their delivery of the product good. This is something that matters, and it makes a big difference. There's a reason these companies out here, invest all this money into, having this, very clean packaging design. They hire these, super smart marketing people and, graphic designers who are at the top of their niche, or the top of their space. There's a reason that they go out and they spend all this money, invest all this money to make their packaging and their product presentation as good as possible. They do it because it works, So if you want people to like your product, a very simple thing you can do, here is literally, have your packaging redesigned. So if you just have the same product, upgrade your packaging. And this is something that can make a difference over time. It can make somebody more likely to actually talk about your brand to somebody else because they may like the product better. Because subconsciously, even if it's the same product and you improve the packaging and you improve the delivery of the product, so you're taking more care in how you box the product. You're not putting tape all over the box, for example, or whatever it is. You improve the care that goes into how you're delivering that product. People are going to be more likely to buy from you again. It's common sense. Would you want to buy from somebody again if you ordered from them and you get the box and there's, tape and crap all over it? The packaging is super unprofessional. It's just kind of thrown in a box with nothing, keeping it from getting damaged. Would you want to order from that company again? Probably not. Even if the product was good, you would be hesitant to order from that company again. You'd be hesitant to talk about that company in a positive way, even if you like the product, because it shows that they didn't take the care needed to actually make the product delivery good or a good experience. And that is very important. That's why Amazon, for instance, has invested into, they have this custom branded packaging, for instance, that looks really nice when they're delivering Amazon orders, because they know this kind of stuff matters. That's why they add the padding in the boxes and stuff to keep the products from getting damaged. So improve the delivery of your product. That can be another thing. But anyways, that is the last one here. So if you guys found this helpful, if you liked it at all, feel free to leave a like, comment what you want to see next. Or if you have any questions about anything marketing related or anything at all, drop them in the comments below and I will be happy to see if I can answer them. So anyways, that is it for now. Like, comment, and subscribe.